Welcome to Biden Brief. The content of the briefing includes: to TikTok or not to TikTok? One GOP candidate joins the app even as he calls it digital fentanyl. To TikTok or not to TikTok? One GOP candidate joins the app even as he calls it digital fentanyl. Solomon Islands PM Sogavare skips Biden-led summit. Democratic Senator Menendez says cash found in home was from his personal savings, not bribe proceeds. Trump is fighting an American class war, and winning. To TikTok or not to TikTok? One GOP candidate joins the app even as he calls it digital fentanyl. The Independent. Vivek Ramaswamy, a Republican candidate for the 2024 U.S. presidential election, has joined TikTok, the Chinese-owned video-sharing app that is under scrutiny over data privacy concerns. Ramaswamy, an entrepreneur, is running on a platform that opposes TikTok, which he calls digital fentanyl, and wants the app to be banned. However, he said his campaign is aimed at reaching young people and therefore he feels he must be on the platform. We're in this to reach young people, to energize young people, and to do that, we can't just hide, he said. Ramaswamy is the first 2024 presidential candidate to join TikTok. Many of his Republican rivals have called for a ban on the app, but they also want to reach young audiences who consume videos on TikTok. The app has over 150 million US users, according to TikTok. A spokeswoman for Ramaswamy's campaign defended both the decision to join TikTok and Ramaswamy's criticisms that the app is dangerous. You have to reach young people where they are, she said. To TikTok or not to TikTok? One GOP candidate joins the app even as he calls it digital fentanyl. Associated Press. Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy has become the first 2024 presidential candidate to join TikTok, despite his accusations that the app is dangerous and should be banned. Ramaswamy believes it is important to reach young people where they are, and TikTok has over 150 million US users. Other Republican presidential candidates face a similar conundrum, as they want to reach younger audiences that consume videos on TikTok or similar apps, but also call for the app to be banned. Ramaswamy's campaign defended the decision, saying that TikTok should not collect user data and that its use should be banned. TikTok defended its efforts to safeguard US user data and argued that a ban would restrict the free speech of Americans. Ramaswamy's approach to TikTok is indicative of his campaign, as he is trying to appeal to younger voters but has promoted policies that would target them, such as raising the voting age for Americans from 18 to 25. Solomon Islands PM Sogavare skips Biden-led summit. Nikkei Asia. Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare did not attend the Pacific Islands summit hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House, a move believed to be linked to the island nation's deepening ties with China. Sogavare's absence is seen as a blow to the Biden administration's efforts to rebuild influence in the Pacific region. The Solomon Islands broke diplomatic ties with Taiwan in 2019 and established formal diplomatic relations with Beijing. Sogavare's no-show follows his visit to China in July, where he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Democratic Senator Menendez says cash found in home was from his personal savings, not bribe proceeds. Associated Press. Democratic U.S. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey has denied corruption charges brought against him, saying cash authorities found in his home was from his savings account and was on hand for emergencies. Menendez said he believed he would be exonerated, but did not address whether he will seek re-election next year. The state's Democratic leadership, including Governor Phil Murphy, the state party chairman and leaders of the legislature, along with some of Menendez's congressional colleagues, are calling on him to resign. Trump is fighting an American class war, and winning. Telegraph. Donald Trump's support for striking UAW workers highlights the emergence of the populist right and the growing dissatisfaction amongst the working class. In 2016, a larger share of union households voted for Trump than any president since Reagan, and in 2020, he received roughly half the votes of unionized construction workers in Ohio. While Republicans were once hostile to unions, figures such as Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance and Josh Hawley have all pledged support to the strikers. The Biden administration has seen high levels of inflation that has eroded average purchasing power by up to $7,000. Poverty levels are rising, and a recent poll found nearly 70% of Americans think the economy is worse now than in 2020. The rapid rise in strikes, up 50% over the past year, reflects the dissatisfaction of the working class, who do not support the Democrats' net zero agenda. The EV mandate, for example, threatens jobs in energy-intensive industries and will force many people to hold on to their own vehicles for longer or give up owning them entirely. Trump is capitalizing on the working class's concerns, but the GOP's transformation into a working-class party is far from assured. U.S. blacklists 28 entities from China, Russia and other countries. Wall Street Journal. The U.S. Commerce Department has added 28 companies from China, Russia, and other countries to its export blacklist, imposing further restrictions on foreign actors that could pose a threat to American national security. The list includes 9 firms that were involved in violating existing export controls by supplying components to a Russian company for the construction of unmanned aerial vehicles. U.S. companies are prohibited from selling to entities on the blacklist without obtaining a license from the U.S. government. This move is part of the Biden administration's efforts to tighten controls on the transfer of goods and technology with military implications to companies in China, Russia, and other countries. Trump condemned after treason rant against NBC and MSNBC. The Guardian. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has said Comcast, the owner of NBC and MSNBC, should be investigated for its country-threatening treason and promised to do so if he is re-elected next year. In response, one progressive group said Trump had gone full fascist. Trump, who regularly threatened NBC and MSNBC during his presidency, claimed that U.S. media was almost all dishonest and corrupt. Observers reacted to Trump's threat with a mixture of familiarity and alarm, with some noting his symbiotic relationship with outlets he professes to hate. Biden hosts Pacific Island leaders in U.S. charm offensive versus China. Reuters. President Joe Biden is hosting a second White House summit with Pacific Island leaders in an effort to block further Chinese influence in the region. The U.S. is promising new money for infrastructure and has announced diplomatic recognition of the Cook Islands and Niue. Last year, Biden pledged to help Pacific Island nations fend off China's economic coercion and strengthen their partnership, with a focus on democracy, climate change, economic growth, sustainable development, public health, and countering illegal fishing. However, Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare has declined to attend the summit, having deepened ties with China. U.S. recognizes Cook Islands, Niue as Biden hosts Pacific Island leaders. Al Jazeera. The United States has recognized the Cook Islands and Niue as sovereign and independent states and pledged to open diplomatic relations, as U.S. President Joe Biden bolsters ties to Pacific Island nations as part of a push to counter growing Chinese influence. Biden said the history and the future of the Pacific Islands and the United States are inextricably linked. The U.S. Pacific Island Forum Summit is expected to focus heavily on the effects of the climate crisis, as well as economic growth, sustainable development and public health. U.S. opens diplomatic ties with Cook Islands in bid to woo Pacific. Bloomberg. The U.S. will establish diplomatic relations with the Cook Islands in an effort to strengthen ties with Pacific Island nations and counter China's growing influence in the region, President Joe Biden has announced. The move aims to address issues including illegal fishing, climate change, economic growth, and the creation of a free and open Indo-Pacific region. The U.S. and its allies are concerned that Pacific Island nations are increasingly aligning with China, and have initiated a diplomatic effort to engage with those countries. Pacific Island leaders have been cautious in their response to Washington's attempts to revitalize ties with the region. U.S. establishes diplomatic relations with Cook Islands and Niue. CNN. The U.S. is establishing diplomatic relations with the Cook Islands and Niue for the first time, as President Joe Biden seeks to strengthen relationships in the Indo-Pacific region as a counter to China's rising influence. The move comes as the Biden administration works to deepen its engagement with Pacific Island nations and hosts the Pacific Island Forum leaders at the White House. Biden is also set to unveil new infrastructure funding for Pacific Island partner nations and announce $10 million through the Quad partnership to improve maritime domain awareness in the Pacific. Trump vows to investigate NBC parent company for treason. The Independent. Donald Trump has accused NBC's parent company, Comcast, of country-threatening treason and called for it to be investigated. Trump also criticized the media's dishonest and corrupt reporting, arguing that it should not be allowed to use U.S. airwaves for free. He also claimed that ABC had refused to report that he was beating Joe Biden by 10 percentage points in a poll. Trump's comments came as he continued to criticize the media over the weekend, calling for all Senate Democrats to resign in the wake of the indictment of Senator Bob Menendez. U.S. Republicans could finally win the argument on immigration. Financial Times. Political conditions in the U.S. are becoming more favorable for progress on immigration. The Biden administration's lax approach to border enforcement has led to a surge in illegal border crossings and a systemic crisis. Public perception of the problem has shifted, with a majority of Americans disapproving of Biden's handling of immigration. Conservatives now have the opportunity to make the case for border security and enforcement, emphasizing the need for a secure and humane immigration system. The influence of big business, which has previously hindered conservative efforts on immigration, is waning. Republicans may use the upcoming government shutdown as an opportunity to push for immigration enforcement. Amazon invests up to $4 billion in Anthropic AI in exchange for minority stake and further AWS integration. CNN. Amazon has invested up to $4 billion in AI firm Anthropic in exchange for a minority stake and a greater use of Amazon Web Services, AWS, its cloud computing platform. Anthropic will become the primary cloud provider for Anthropic, using Amazon's platform for most of its AI model development and research into AI safety. Anthropic has also made a long-term commitment to offer its AI models to AWS customers and provide early access to features. Amazon's investment follows similar moves by cloud leaders such as Microsoft, which invested $1 billion in OpenAI in 2019 and made a $10 billion investment this year. Trillions in climate funding could hurt poor nations. Wall Street Journal. Rich countries are planning to send more than $1 trillion per year to developing countries by 2030 to help combat climate change. The money would come from institutional investors, such as pension funds, insurance companies, asset managers, and private equity firms. The goal is to finance renewable energy projects and infrastructure to protect vulnerable nations from the effects of climate change. However, there are growing concerns that the influx of capital could lead to economic instability in poorer countries that lack the necessary financial infrastructure. In the past, foreign investment has often resulted in large debts, overvalued currencies, and financial crises. Drawing private investors into climate projects is a priority for the Biden administration, as Republicans in Congress oppose using public funds for such initiatives. Developing economies are under pressure to reduce their reliance on fossil fuels and promote clean energy. Without foreign capital, they may struggle to achieve these goals. When is the second Republican debate and will Trump attend? Reuters. The second 2024 Republican presidential debate will take place on Wednesday in California. Donald Trump will not be attending the event and will instead give a speech in Detroit to auto workers. The debate will feature 6 candidates: Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former Vice President Mike Pence, former UN Ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, U.S. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, biotech investor Vivek Ramaswamy, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. The candidates will likely focus on attacking President Biden rather than criticizing Trump, as many Republican voters still support him. Donald Trump will be all across America this week, except on the debate stage. CNN. Former President Donald Trump is set to have a busy week of campaigning, but notably absent from his schedule is the second Republican primary debate. While his GOP rivals prepare for the debate, Trump plans to focus on shoring up support in early nominating states and wooing swing state voters. He will hold a rally in South Carolina, give a speech in Michigan, and speak at the California GOP's fall convention. Trump has questioned the point of participating in primary debates when he leads in national polls. He is also navigating a presidential campaign while facing multiple criminal trials. Venezuelans in U.S. welcome temporary protected status. The Guardian. The Biden administration has extended temporary protected status, TPS, to almost 500,000 Venezuelan nationals, enabling them to live and work in the U.S. The move means that around 472,000 Venezuelans will become eligible for temporary permission to reside and work in the U.S. In recent years, more than 7.3 million Venezuelans have fled the political and economic crisis in their country. What a government shutdown means for health care. Washington Post. 42% of HHS staff would be furloughed if the government shuts down. The federal government is careening toward a shutdown. Congress has until Saturday night to pass legislation averting a lapse in government funding, and there's no clear resolution to the standoff in the House, where some hard-right lawmakers remain opposed to a short-term fix. When it comes to health policy, a short shutdown wouldn't affect major programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Obamacare's federal insurance marketplace. Research into developing vaccines and therapeutics would continue, as would the federal health department's response to COVID-19, while the Food and Drug Administration could still support drug and medical device reviews. What does Huawei's new chip mean for US-China rivalry? Deutsche Welle. Huawei has released a new phone, the Mate 60 Pro, which is powered by a Chinese-made Kirin 9007nm processor, Tech Insights has found. The scale of the chip is important because smaller-scale chips can be packed with more elements, making them faster and more powerful. The manufacturer, Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corp., SMIC, was previously known for making chips limited to the 14-nanometer level. Both Huawei and SMIC are under US sanctions for alleged security risks. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.